Welcome to Podnutz Daily, episode number 310. The show for computer repair techs by computer repair techs. It is where we have computer repair guys come on the show, technicians who own shops and businesses or just do it as a part-time, as a full-time, from all walks of computer repair life. And they come on the show and they share tips and tricks with you, their techniques, methods, secrets. That's what we do. So let's introduce the technician for today. He's been on the show before. Kevin Wisher. And let me find my mouse.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good, Kevin. I want to find my mouse so I can put you on screen. There you are. I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Got pretty warm here today.
Really?
Yeah, I got up in close to 80 degrees.
Where are you at again?
First time. I'm in north central Indiana.
Damn. It's not supposed to be that hot yet up there, is it?
I know. It's kind of out of the ordinary. We've had a lot of rain and cool kind of 60s and rainy weather the last few weeks. Now it's kind of cleared up and got hot and humid.
Hey, I like it. That's what I like. And I should like it because I'm going to be exposed to it in high degrees down here in Florida. But soak it up while you can. Sun is good. Tell me again if I got your website right. It's kwdesign-consulting.com, right?
Correct.
Great. Well, I have your notes here. We're all good to go. Why don't you just let it rip?
Okay. I think everybody probably knows, or maybe not, from my previous appearances, my full-time job is a network administrator at my local school system. I do computer repair on the side. Let's kind of give you an overview of what's been going on here in the last few weeks. Gotten a lot of systems in that have the standard anti-Windows fake malware type stuff. I haven't really ran into anything other than that in the last, well, in fact, never. It's always just been that, that fake Windows fake AV malware that's going around.
You're talking about in the school or at home?
Both. At home with my side business, my standard routine for cleaning these types of systems is if I can't get to the desktop and install Malwarebytes right off the bat, I just throw in AVG Rescue Disk, which boots at the Linux distro so you can scan outside of Windows. So you boot off this CD, and I just start it and let it run. And usually with these types of malware, after a half hour, it usually finds that once the first one pops up on your screen, you can stop the scan and let it remove it, and then you can actually get back to the Windows desktop, and then you're able to install Malwarebytes and do the rest of the cleaning that way.
I see. How long does it take to run that disk? Is it a long scan?
Well, depending on the size of the drive, that's why I'll start it, and instead of letting it run till complete, so I'll just usually give it a half hour. I'll go in the house, do something else, come back, and if I see it's found that first, it's usually identified as some kind of Trojan, I'll stop the scan, let it remove it, and then you're able to actually boot into Windows and able to install your Malwarebytes and all your other utilities.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
That way, it's like, say, it's scanning outside of Windows. It finds that nastiness that doesn't let you function or install anything, and I don't have to sit there and babysit it. I can start it. I can, start it and let it run clear through for, an hour and a half, depending on the size of the drive. But usually after it finds that first Trojan, and you can stop the scan or let it remove it, and then it'll boot, and you can actually get in and then be able to install Malwarebytes and CCleaner and all that good stuff.
Right. Cool. It's a good tip.
So, if you're looking for an easy way to, if you have I've seen, I don't know what the variance of this particular malware is. Sometimes it lets you, actually get to the desktop, get to a usable system, and it lets you install Malwarebytes. Sometimes it doesn't. They're just I don't know what the difference is in them, but some are nastier than others. And like I say, once you run that scan, that AVG rescue disk, and let get rid of that first thing, you can get in there and do your thing.
Right. That works.
The next topic is referring to the episode you had Kerry Holtzman on. He was saying that he didn't like to run registry cleaners on Windows Vista or in 7.
Okay.
Because he thought that something to do with the registry changed, and it was some kind of virtual file, something virtualized or something or another.
Okay.
I can't. But I've ran CCleaner on Vista and 7 with no problems at all. In fact, even after if you have to do a nuke and pave with Vista or 7, that's one of the things I'll do after I get done doing all the Windows updates, and is run CCleaner on a brand new, fresh install, and it still finds all kinds of in the registry cleaner, finds all kinds of errors and fixes those.
Why would you do that after a new install?
Because of I just don't trust Microsoft.
I got you.
So, and if you ever get an opportunity to do a fresh, and even on XP, don't matter what version of Windows, if you get an opportunity to do a fresh, clean install after you do all your Windows updates, run CCleaner, the registry cleaner on it, and you'll be surprised how much crap it finds.
Really?
It fills up that whole scan window, and I'll let it remove everything. I've never backed up the registry. I did when I first started using CCleaner, but I've never found any ill effects from CCleaner.
Yeah, I never had a CCleaner crash a registry either. I don't do the backup. I didn't do the backup. I'm trying to look on their website if they say it's for 7 and Vista, but they just say it looks like they just say Windows.
Yeah, like I say, I've never had an issue with it. I run it on every version.
Cool.
And I'll usually run that before I run Malwarebytes once I've got the once I can get to the desktop and install my utilities, I'll run CCleaner first, so it kind of gets rid of some crap, so I don't have to scan so much.
Right.
And like I say, I've never had an issue with it.
Very cool. Good one.
Okay, the next thing I had that was outside of your normal virus and malware cleaning stuff was I built a custom built, I guess you want a NAS or a file storage unit for a customer of mine he's a I wouldn't say amateur, but I wouldn't say professional photographer. It's his part-time gig, so he needs a lot of storage for his pictures and stuff. So I built him this Linux NAS system, it was a brand new build, and that was about 1.5 years ago. Well, he called and said it was starting to act flaky. He couldn't access it correctly and everything, so I had him bring it over. It booted fine. Then I started noticing that the OS drive had a 40 gig operating system part disk, which had a Linux installed on it, and then I had a 1.5 terabyte drives in a RAID 5 array for his storage.
Okay.
Well, like I say, the OS drive started showing some errors with a smart utility I ran on it. So I put a new, like I say, 1.5 years old, so it needed a fresh operating system anyway. So I went ahead and installed a new Ubuntu server OS on it for him. And after that, then the storage drive started flaking out on me. It was just really strange. And then along the same time, the front cooling fan quit working. Here I'm thinking, I'm thinking that the drives are failing and the fan's failing. So I ordered him a new 1.5 terabyte drive, a new, case fan, get all these new parts in, and it's still doing the same thing. And so can you guess what the problem was after a week of trying to diagnose this problem.
This one I don't know. Power supply?
Very good. I wish I had a power supply tester. I don't know if it would have found the problem right off the bat or not. 'Cause I haven't heard. I mean, I've heard good and bad about power supply testers, and I don't think I had a spare one to, swap in to test my theory. But
you know what, Kevin? I would say I've had a power supply tester. They're good for telling you if a power supply is dead. They're good for. I actually forget how. They're good for only one thing, but you can never be too totally sure of the reading. They'll tell you if something's wrong. But okay, here's the thing. They'll let you know if something's wrong with the power supply. All the little lights won't light up, or they'll tell you in the little LED readout that something's wrong. It's not giving enough voltage. But it also reads correct for some hard drives that aren't good. So it's good for letting you know if your hard drive is bad. You can tell if one of the lights are off on your power supply tester or something reads bad on your power supply, then you know your power supply is bad. But it also has this caveat of, even though you hook up a crummy power supply to this thing, it still might read that everything's good, even though it's not. So it'll definitely tell you if something's bad, but it won't absolutely give you 100% certainty if something's good. So my suggestion is, instead of buying a power supply tester, buy a spare power supply and use that as your tester in these machines. Just plug it in if you suspect something's wrong and see what happens, because you can never be 100% with the power supply testers.
Yeah, it was a Roseville. Like I said, when I built this system for him, it was a brand new case that had a included power supply. I think it was a 350 watt. Roseville was the brand of the case, and
usually
once I figured out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Once I kind of figured out it might be the power supply, I jury rigged 2 power supplies to the system and split up, the hardware in between the 2 power supplies, and it sat there and ran for 3 days with no problem. So that's how I kind of figured, because I didn't have one that was bigger than a 350 or a newer one or a new one to, verify.
You don't even necessarily have to have a 350. You just need to have a quality one. Usually the ones that come in cases are crap. They just are. I mean, I've used them a lot, but I haven't had too many failures, but they're not good. You can tell. You could just tell.
I learned my lesson on this one.
There you go. At least you learned your lesson some way.
So this customer was pretty forgiving. I ended up buying, like I say, I bought 2 1.5 2 of the storage drives before I figured out the power supply. So I ended up, I didn't want to stick him with all this extra hardware that I'd bought that he didn't need. So I talked him into buying the one drive for a backup in case something ever does really happen with one of the drives. And I kept one of them for myself, and I kept the fan.
Yeah, that's good. You got some stock now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the drive's being used on my system sitting right here by me.
Well, you got a new drive then for yourself.
Right. It's doing all my Mess TV recordings. So
nice.
The next system I got in was the retired gentleman from one of the local Chrysler factory here, and I don't know, I'm guessing this system was an 8-year-old Dell, but I'm thinking it maybe even be older than that. It was some kind of a deal that Chrysler had for their employees where they could get these computers from Chrysler, and they had some generic ones, and they also had some Dell ones. Well, this guy got this Dell one. It had Windows XP on it. It was like an 800 megahertz CPU, 512 megabytes of RAM. I'd worked on it before, and it was just painful to work with. I mean,
exactly.
And he wasn't interested in building a new computer or anything. Well, he calls me up for the second time, and I get this. He said he's getting an error, and it won't boot into Windows. It's at the, right after the BIOS. And the error is related to the System32 into NTOS kernel.exe file being missing or corrupt.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever ran into that or not. this, so I did some Googling on this error, and there were some instructions to, unpack it from a Windows, installed disk. So I tried that. That still didn't solve the problem. So like I say, this system's so old, it had never had Windows reinstalled on it. It was still running on the same install.
Jeez, wow.
And it was slower than, dog poo. So I talked him into letting me do a nuke and a pave on it. So save these files, of course, and did the full install. If you guys are doing a nuke and pave, I can't recommend highly enough. I think Lalo is the one that first posted this in the forums about the offline Windows updater.
Yes.
That is a godsend for doing Windows updates.
You just get them all downloaded, and then it saves you on time.
Right. It goes out. You install the software, and through the dialog of the program, you tell it what updates you want it to get. It goes out, pulls them down, and it creates an ISO disk, or creates an ISO disk file for you. Once that's created, you burn it to it's XP. It's actually, you got to put it on a DVD because it's bigger than a CD. And then you put that in on after you get Windows up and booted for the first time, and it'll install its program off that DVD, and then it'll start the routine of going and installing all the updates. It'll automatically boot the machine through every time it needs to boot. You can put it in pretty much and walk away from it.
Nice.
And when you come back, you still have to go to Windows Update and do some updates, but it's not quite as much.
Nice.
And I haven't tried this with Vista or 7 yet. I haven't had the opportunity to do a nuke and pave on an existing system yet with that, so I haven't tried it on there. But I did try it on a Windows XP Media Center edition, and so I want to warn everybody, if you do happen to have that, that version of Windows XP, you cannot use this automatic Windows updater program on it.
What did it do?
So be warned. After I like I say, I installed got back, once you get Windows where it boots back, and you finally get to the desktop after a clean install, I just popped in the disk and started the routine. When it got done,
Oh, lost you, Kevin. Are you there? I got to call you back. I'm losing you. Yeah, Kevin?
testing.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Got you back. Let's see. Hang on a sec. Hang on. And last thing I heard you say was, hang on.
Where it boots back, and you finally get to the desktop after a clean install. I just popped in the disk and started the routine. When it got done,
that's where we left off.
Yeah, before we lost connection there, I was talking about the Windows offline updater will not work on a Windows XP Media Center edition. On the one I did, once you started the offline updater software, it looks like it's working. It goes through all the standard routines and reboots, but on the last reboot, it ends up blue screening.
Damn,
so
what a pain. It waits till the last one.
Yeah, it waits till the last minute to blue screen on you, and then you got to start all over.
Figures.
So anyway, just everybody be warned, if you do get a Media Center XP edition, don't use the offline Windows Updater software.
Okay, good tip, man. Learn the hard way.
And like I say, I've never tried this yet, the offline updater with Vista or 7 yet, so
okay.
I'm not sure how well that. I'm pretty sure that when you're building the updater disk, I think there is an option for Vista. I can't remember if there was an option for Windows 7.
Okay.
So anyway, this customer I was telling you about that had the missing NTOS kernel file. Like say after I reinstalled it, got everything, all the updates, did it with the Windows offline updater, got always standard Flash and Adobe Reader and all the standard stuff he was going to need. Took it back to him. He calls me back a few hours later and says the machine will not stay on. It starts up and it turns off. Starts up, turns off. And I had this thing on for like 3 days at my house, while I was doing updates. It was on constantly while I was messing with it.
Right.
So I go to his house, start unplugging everything from the back of the computer until we get it down to just the bare essentials, a mouse and a keyboard. I unplugged the keyboard after Windows is booted because he still had a PS2 port keyboard, so Windows won't. You can't just plug one of those in after Windows boots, and it won't find it. So
right.
I waited till I got to the desktop, unplugged the keyboard, plugged the keyboard back in, and bam, it just shut off.
Really?
Wow,
keyboard?
Yeah, I thought the keyboard had a short or something. So I had a spare keyboard. We tried that. Still same thing. So I don't know whether it's that that keyboard port was a problem. He didn't have a USB keyboard. Finally, I could not figure out. Brought it back to my house, back here, and started doing the same thing. Power on, shut off.
With a USB keyboard even?
Well, my KVM switch that I use has all USB, mouse and keyboard connector, so I wasn't even using the PS3 or PS2 connector, so ruled that out. But the system was so old, I thought it was the power supply. Well, the system's so old, the power supply still had that P6 power connector.
Oh,
That's
my
how old this was. And I didn't even have I got about 6 old power supplies laying around, and none of them had that connector on, so I couldn't even test that.
This thing just needs to go straight into the trash.
Well, that's what I finally told the guy. I said, I gave him credit for what I charged him to do the fresh install. I said he wanted me to price him a new system, so let's see what he was wanting to keep it under $500 for a brand new computer.
It's doable,
including my labor. Well, what I ended up, I got him a mini tower case, an AMD dual core, 3.2 gigahertz, 4 gig of RAM, a 500 gig hard drive, a DVD, CD burner, a memory card reader, and Windows 7 Home Premium. All for total parts was $478. So with my labor, it ended up being around. I charged $200 to build a system from scratch.
Right.
And I get all my parts through Newegg using the Podnutz link. So
thank you. Thank you for that.
So anyway, the total bill ended up being $572 with my labor.
Because you gave him the credit.
Right. So he got a nice system. I got a dual core AMD 3.2 gigahertz, 4 gig of RAM. So, it just made him a whole much better system. And all this guy does is get online and play poker and email, the standard stuff. He doesn't do anything that is really demanding of the computer. So
was he happy?
Yes, I talked to him today for the first time. He hadn't called or anything since I delivered the machine about 3 weeks ago. So I talked to him today, and his big concern was there was the red light on front of the case for the hard drive activity light was flashing. He was wondering if that was a problem.
Tell him if it's not flashing, it's a problem.
I said, that's just the nature of the beast. It's even if it's sitting there and you're not using it, it's going to be doing something. I mean, it's always checking something, so that's just a hard drive. I said, if it bothers you that much, take a black magic marker and color it up or put some tape over it. Whatever, whatever makes you feel good. But this guy he's like all concerned about disk fragmentation, running a disk defragger.
Of course.
He goes, well, how often should I defrag that disk? He goes, because I had my old one set up to do it once a week. I said, well, that's really, too much. You don't really need it once a month, once every 3 months, something like that. Just if you're not installing a lot of software on it and creating a bunch of personal files, your disk's not going to get fragmented, so there's really no need to run it on a regular basis. But that's what his main concern was, the disk defragment. They just think that, I don't know where people's got that ingrained in their brains.
Serious. That is the consumer's favorite fix. They defragged it and everything. It's still acting up. And they defragged it and everything, and it's still acting up. It's amazing.
Okay, then I got a long-time customer that called me up and told me he wanted a new computer. I said, okay, what are you wanting? What are you wanting to do with this system? Because I always gauge what they're using the computer for the type of hardware I buy for me.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, I want to be able to rip Blu-ray disc. I said, okay. So I priced him out a system. It was I like using AMD CPUs because I think you get more bang for the buck. So I priced him. I can't remember. It was a quad-core Phenom. Is like one step below their top of the line. I always go with the first one that's under the top of the line one, so you don't have to pay that premium price for their latest and greatest.
Right.
Priced him out this system. It was going to be a little around $750
for a gaming machine.
Well, basically that's what he was going to be using it for, was playing some games and ripping Blu-ray discs.
Yeah.
4 gig of RAM. It was like I say, $750. Then plus my labor to put it together for him. Well, he started doing a little research and he decided he wanted an Intel Core i7. Right. He wanted the latest and greatest.
Okay.
Well, went from a little over $100 for the AMD quad-core CPU, all the way up to $290 for this Core i7.
Yes.
And then the motherboard, he found this motherboard. It was $300 Asus motherboard. Then he decided he needed 2 Blu-ray drives, the Blu-ray burner drives. I told him he could get by. I was trying to talk him out of spending all this money but he wanted to make sure he had the latest and greatest. So he wanted to last him for a while.
That's kind of silly. It's kind of silly getting the i7 for that. But this guy
had a checkbook, so.
Well, no, I know. It sounds like he's got a little business in place, and he needs his tools to further his business.
Oh no, he doesn't. He's
really?
He's an old retired guy, and he just, I don't know. He just he's always buying gadgets. Every time he buys a new gadget, he always calls me up. He's always calling me up saying, how do I do this? How do I do that?
No, my bad. I didn't know that you knew him personally, but somebody comes in wanting to rip Blu-rays and cost is not an option. They usually have a little business going on.
Oh, no. He's not doing anything else.
Okay. All right, good.
Well, unless he's copying discs that are not his. I don't know. I didn't ask, but
I gotcha.
But anyway, he said he had to have the 2. He wanted the 2 drives. I told him you don't need it. You can just rip to the hard drive, and if you're going to copy them, he didn't understand that principle because he had 2 drives in the past and thought you had to have 2 drives to copy a disk. And so, I tried advising him on not the top of the line system, but something mid level that would do the job for him and would have saved him about $700. But he, ended up spending $1,630 just in hardware. He had the case he wanted. Well, it was like a gamer case. It had so many freaking LEDs on it. I've never seen a case with this many fans on it.
Really?
I thought the thing would take off on me when I plugged it in. But, I mean, it was actually pretty quiet. But
it's amazing. Seriously, some of those good gamer cases, they have all the fans, but they're super quiet. I love that.
it was actually quieter than the one I'm sitting next to, with only 2 fans in it. And I think this thing I counted them, it had 7 fans.
Jeez.
Had one, even I never seen one that had a fan on the bottom side of the motherboard, right behind the CPU.
Oh, really?
Blow air on the bottom of the CPU socket.
Awesome.
That's the first one I've seen like that.
That's pretty cool.
But this motherboard had so many bells and whistles. It had it was an overclocker's dream. I mean, it had this little LCD panel you could plug in so you could tweak all your voltages, and I didn't put any of that stuff on. I just told the guy, I said, if I start overclocking it, I'm not going to warranty the system. So if you want to do it, here it is. Had all, gave him all the extra parts that came for the overclocking features of it, and said, here you go. If you feel like, tweaking the system to its max, then that's your decision.
He probably loved it. Machine like that.
Well, yeah, but I don't think he messed. I'm sure he is not going to mess with it. This guy, he couldn't even get his email set up on an iPad he bought. So.
Wow.
So I get a call. Like I say, I get a call every time he buys a new gadget. I have to go over and get it connected to his network and all this and that. So.
Wow.
So anyway, he's a good customer. He calls maybe every other week with a question, and if I have to actually visit his house, he'll pay me for the time that I spent on the phone with him. So he's a good customer. So
that's nice.
He just cracks me up that he has to have the latest and greatest gadgets, and he's like 70 years old.
And he's not even doing like hardcore stuff with it.
No, he plays games and all day and rips Blu-rays. I asked him how it was doing on a Blu-ray rip, and he said he could rip a Blu-ray and decode it in about an hour. So
an hour? Is that good? I don't even know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it takes on my system. When I rip a DVD and encode it to a file that I play on my Myth TV system, it takes about an hour and a half just to do a DVD. And that's it's a quad core, a dual, what is it, quad core dual? That's what it is. It's not a true quad core, but
it might be. Is it a Core 2 quad or Core 2 duo quad? Core 2 quad.
Core 2 quad. That's what it is.
I think that's a true. Isn't that a true quad core?
I think it was one of the very first quad cores that came out with. It's kind of like 2 cores with 2 each.
Hyperthreading.
Yeah, and it appears like it's got 4 when you look at it. Look at any system properties or anything. But anyway, it takes me an hour and a half to encode a.
Well, that's
a
the
movie.
thing. See, ripping the files off probably doesn't take too much time. It's re-encoding. That's right. That rendering. Yeah. That's why I bought i7s. I have a couple because when I do video editing, if you don't have an i7 for rendering, it's just forever. And rendering is just the biggest pain in the butt ever for computers ever, I think.
Right. The actual getting the disk, to your hard drive that doesn't require that much. But like you say, it's the encoding and decoding or whatever they call it.
Right. Wow.
Okay, next on the list, I got my very first small business job.
Good.
And this is very ironic because I listened to all your shows and I've been listening to the Podnutz Pro because it kind of correlates with my daytime job. I pick up a lot of tips and things from that. Well, starting with show 15 of the Podnutz Pro. Matt and Lalo were talking about the installation of small business server. Well, just very ironic that this coincided with getting this small business job, my very first one.
Perfect.
I've never set up a Windows server from scratch. Well, it came pre-installed, but I ended up wiping the disk and starting over, and I took notes from the show. Had the podcast queued up while I was doing it, so it was just a very good tutorial on how to get a small business server set up. And like I say, shows 15, 16, 17 were very instrumental in getting this job done.
Fantastic, man. That's great news. I love hearing stuff like that.
So give a good shout out to Matt and Lalo for their sharing their knowledge on that show.
Cool.
And to all the other techs out there, don't be scared about taking on something like this. It's very doable. It's not that difficult.
So did you get it done okay?
Yeah, this started, back like at the end of March is when I actually received all the server, and he bought 9 workstations. They were Dell PowerEdge or Dell Optiplex 380s for his workstations.
Okay.
This was an eye doctor practice he was setting up.
Okay.
And I worked with Dell. Worked with Dell and getting the correct server for him. I know Matt likes HP, but the HP prices were just over the edge.
Really?
They were about $1,000 more than what Dell was. So he decided to go with Dell since he's starting out from scratch. And so I got the server set up for him. He ended up having someone. I thought I was going to have to run all the Cat5 cabling, get all that set up for him, but he ended up having someone else run all the cabling into his closet where the server is going to be. All the wall jacks were already terminated. All I had to do was install the patch panel in the closet and terminate all that.
That's nice.
I like using Panduit stuff. They make some really neat connectors and patch panels that are not like I don't know if you're familiar with the punch down style of terminations, but these are a whole lot better.
What are they called?
Panda is the company, the manufacturer. I can't remember they got a special name of their product.
Panda? Panda?
Panduit.
Oh, Panduit. Okay. Interesting.
Dell priced a router and a firewall to my customer for like $1,200, and I thought that was just a little bit too much money. So what I ended up doing was buying this mini PC. Open was the company,
right?
And I installed a custom Linux firewall distro on it, which is called IP Fire. And this little mini computer had 2 NIC cards already in it, and you could either put a laptop hard drive in it or run off of a compact flash card. So I got him a 16 gig compact flash card to install the software on it, and it worked out really slick. Ended up only being like $400 for the device and the card.
Is the card going to last? I mean, it's SSD.
That's a compact flash.
Same thing, right?
True, but so far, I mean, it's been running for like 6 weeks now, no problems. Okay. I've got it. Once you get the system configured correctly, you can go into the web interface and you can actually it'll produce an ISO file of what you've got configured. So in case of any failure, I can always slap in a laptop drive and restore that real quickly. Right.
Good.
I like that so much. I actually bought one for myself here at home. So
why? Because it's fast, right? I'll bet.
Well, that, and it's easy to configure through a web interface. It's anybody that's kind of familiar with networking, and it's similar to logging into a Linksys router or any other type of web interface for a router configuration. It's got built-in spam filtering, web proxying, content filtering, so you can block porn and gambling and whatever type of categories you want to block. And it's pretty slick.
Damn. Open, right?
Open. I forgot to get a link for that particular system, but it's like, it's like 6 by 6 and about 1.25 inches thick. It's just very tiny little unit.
Cool.
That's got, what I liked about it was I already had the 2 onboard NIC cards, which you need for a router type system. So
very cool. Good stuff.
So anyway, he's just started to, I think this week he finally was starting to take his first new customer. So I've been doing some remote, support with him since I've got everything installed, at the physical location. So I've got him set up where I can remote in and take care of minor issues for him. Installed a network printer, multifunction machine for him.
Right.
Actually been a pretty neat little setup. So,
hey, good job. Good job taking it on.
Like I say, all you guys out there that are thinking about, taking the next step to small businesses, as long as you, like I said, I just listened to the Podnutz Pros episodes and gave me all the confidence I needed to take that step. So.
It's great advice. I recommend it too. Broaden your scope of knowledge. Awesome. What else you got?
Just here in the last week or two, I heard about I follow the Tech Nibble forums, and there's a guy that posted a new utility. I haven't had a chance to use it yet because I haven't had any infected systems come in. I'm kind of, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of anxious for an infected computer to come in and give us a try. But the website is www.foolishit.com.
Now, if you say that wrong,
Yep. Yeah. But anyway, the name of the utility that this technician has made himself, he's actually programmed it himself with, I think he said in the forums, was Visual Basic. And the name of the utility is called D7. I just installed it on a test system on a VM I had to kind of get a look at it, but it has all kinds of neat features in it. And then since he's published it, people on the TechNibbles forum has been making suggestions to him, and it'll automatically update itself. So I'm kind of anxious to give this a try to see if this works out any better than some of the other tools.
What is it for?
It'll remove, malware, virus scanning, it'll fix your TCP settings, and I've been hearing about some of the malware going around that actually hides the user's data folders, makes them invisible, it'll run this utility that'll turn all the folders back to, take out the hidden archive, the hidden bit off of the folders.
Neat.
It's kind of like an all-in-one inclusive tune-up, scanning, repair all kinds of issues in a system that's got problems. Like I say, I haven't got a chance to use it yet, but